the year is 2018, I think. And you were watching broadcast television, remember that thing? And you decided to turn on Kevin James' new sitcom. And I'm not talking about The King of Queens. I'm talking about Kevin Can Wait, okay? And season 2, episode 3, if I recall correctly, I was going to say if I could call correctly, but if I recall correctly, season 2, episode 3, you would see this schmuck roller skating in season 2, episode 3 of Kevin Can Wait. And I was background, and that was cast by a man named Ross Meyerson. Now, he did not cast background, okay? And he did not know who I was at all. And we actually didn't even talk about it on the podcast. But the reason why I decided to bring this up is because we just had to talk about it as he was leaving. And I was like, oh yeah, I did Kevin Can Wait. And I was like, I did background on Kevin Can Wait when I was a kid. And this is true. You could go back. You might want to. But so that just gives you a little taste, okay? Ross Meyerson is an incredibly prominent TV film casting director who for a long time was working with Julie Tucker under Tucker Meyerson Casting and is now doing some solo work and has his own production company. And at the moment is working on Dexter Resurrection, which is on Paramount Plus with Showtime right now, or Showtime. And it's shooting all in New York, which is really exciting. And Ross is currently working on the second season, which is upcoming, of Dexter Resurrection, which is pretty cool. That's just one of his credits. He's also an Emmy Award winner for Damages, okay, which he did with Julie Tucker Meyerson Casting. And he was also started in theater doing, he was the artistic director at Millbrook Playhouse and got his start in theater in a big, huge way. But aside from that, he cast White Collar and Nurse Jackie and a bunch of other huge TV shows and film. So I think that this is especially, it's a different side because we've never had a full-on TV film casting director on the show. And I got to take a class with Ross a couple months ago, one-on-one. I have to shout them out. And it was just so special and so different than any other class I've ever taken with a casting director, especially a TV film casting director, because he was so much more focused on the nuance and getting to the truth and living truthfully under imaginary circumstances. That's It's like the Michael Scott in The Office moment where he quotes Wayne Gretzky and then puts Michael Scott. That's a Sanford Meisner quote, but something that Ross believes in heavily, and I think really gets the job done at making sure that that's a huge point about every scene. So I'm getting wordy now. This is usually what happens at this point in the intro. But it's a really special episode. I was really thrilled that he came out here and we got to chat with him because he's a busy man. He's doing a lot of things and a lot of really, really cool, exciting things. And we get to chat with him about all your burning questions, your questions about social media, as an actor, self-tapes and what he's looking for and theater versus TV film. We span the gamut. How many roles is he casting in, TV film and for one given episode? Or how many people he's looking for one role. I asked everything. I know what you guys want. I asked everything. So without further ado, this is Ross Meyerson's I Want to Be Like You. 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 Welcome to another episode of I Want to Be Like You with Elbi Cespedes, introducing Ross Meyerson.
Elbi Cespedes.
Oh, thank you for being here. Thank you. I took a class with you something like 2 months ago now.
That's correct.
And then I thought it was one of the greatest classes I'd ever taken, particularly because I've taken plenty of classes with casting directors, but I wasn't sitting there thinking about whether or not you would cast me. I just wanted your advice on what you were gonna do.
Did you go in with that attitude, or did your attitude change when you were there?
I think that you go to a lot of casting director classes, and the thing is that was good, and try it again.
Right.
And that's kind of that's it. I mean, I'm not trying to generalize all these classes because some classes are great, but it oftentimes tends not to be as much of like a master class and let's dive into the material and what we're doing here,
right? As
much as yours was, and I think that took me and everyone else in the class by surprise.
I think it always does. Yeah.
Yeah. And you also, for what it's worth, started off saying like, hey, let's focus on this, not that. You know what I mean?
Well, what I said is, and what I always say is like, you should definitely be here to meet me, because that's like part of being an actor. You got to do your networking. You got to give your agent, if you have an agent, you got to give them like something to, but that's not the main reason why you should be here.
Right.
Like that should just be on your list, just not at the top.
Right. Because I think a lot of people do think, well, I got to get in front of, Jonathan Strauss or whatever, because I need a job on SVU, thinking that one thing will directly correlate to the other.
Right. I think I said it that day. Like could be a colossal waste of money. Like, if you chase the dream through that, like you're gonna drop bucks.
A lot of money.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we start the podcast with the same question every time, and it is, who is your I want to be like you when you were a kid?
Well, I think you gathered this from me. It will not be anybody that in the business that we work in. I wanted to be Arthur Ashe when I was a kid. He's a tennis player.
Oh, okay.
He was I don't know if he wasn't the first black tennis player. I think that was Althea Gibson. Like back in the day.
Yeah.
But he was like, there were two people. I wanted to be either Walt Clyde Frazier, Earl Monroe, and Willis Reed, because I was a huge Knick fan, and Willis Reed lived like 5 blocks from me. So like,
oh really?
Like when you were a kid, when I was a kid, like you would literally you'd bump into, like they didn't make it wasn't like today where they made like buckets of money. Like so, like I'd go to the supermarket and there would be Willis Reed, the captain of the New York Knicks.
Oh my gosh,
online.
That's crazy.
So, but I grew up playing tennis, and I thought Arthur Ashe was just like, I thought what he did as a black man breaking into a sport that like was not meant for brown people.
Right. That
I was just like, and I'm white, but still, like
sure.
I was like, that guy. I just thought he was so cool.
Did you grow up going to games too?
Knick games, I did not. I think like when I was a young kid, like I did not go to a lot of Knick games. My dad worked for a tennis magazine for a while, so like my family got really into tennis.
Oh wow!
And I grew up in Forest Hills, which is where the Open was originally played.
Right.
And so when I was in high school, the Open was still there. And as a matter of fact, we had a tournament, and if you made like the quarterfinals, semifinals, you got to play at the West Side Tennis Club, which I did once.
Whoa!
It was so unbelievably cool. Then it moved to the National Tennis Center, which is still kind of near my house. So like, anyway, tennis was a big part of my life.
Right.
So,
Being that you're into tennis, how do you feel about pickleball?
I'm not as into tennis as I was as a kid. Right. I think because I kind of burned out. It's funny that you say that, because I'm advancing in age, and I keep thinking, I guess I got to try that sport. It's kind of like golf. I kind of think like, if I'm doing that, that means I'm old and I can't play sports anymore.
Sure, yeah. Because people have very strong opinions on tennis or pickleball, not tennis and pickleball.
Right, because now, like in most little towns, like all the pickleball, they're taking over the tennis courts.
Yeah, right, exactly. So you're from Queens, and did you grow up like what was, I guess, theater and film and television? How did that have a place in your life? Did you go to shows and whatnot?
I did not until I know exactly when the whole thing started for me. I did not. I grew up in a predominantly Jewish neighborhood, and so my parents did not raise me religiously, so I wasn't a member of a temple. But all my buddies were the member of this youth group at a temple. So they were like, "You can join. You don't have to be a member of the temple." So I joined, and like one of the first trips was to see Pippin on Broadway.
Oh,
and so I went
as a youth group.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I went with them, and like it was way after Ben Vereen was in the show, or John Rubinstein. I remember who played, I think the guy who played Ben Vereen's role was a guy named Northern J. Calloway, who was on Sesame Street. And I don't remember. I don't think it was John Rubinstein who ended up. I'm sorry. I don't think it was William Catt who ended up doing it on the road. But so I don't remember who played Pippin. But anyway, I remember coming home and just thinking like, oh my God, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen. You? 13, exactly 13. Wow. And I was like, I didn't like at that point, I didn't know like, oh, this is what I want to do.
Sure.
Because like, I didn't think you could do that. Like, I didn't like nobody I knew like, like was interested in that as a career. And then I like just got really into like, so like my parents would buy me tickets because they knew I was interested in it. And like, I remember I saw Vita. I mean, I saw a bunch of shows.
Oh, cool.
And then, it's a long story after that, but like the TV thing didn't happen until way later.
Right. Well, you had this long career in theater. You went, from what I understand, you went to University of Albany for theater. Is that right?
No, I went to University of Albany because I didn't get into University of Binghamton, where all my buddies, where all my buddies went. Although, like a lot of my friends went to Albany too, but like I just had my heart set on Binghamton. I don't know why. Like I didn't know, you know.
Yeah.
I remember I looked at Purchase, which was
Right.
at that time. I mean, it's still a pretty big theater school, but
Right.
at that time it was like we didn't like there weren't as many theater programs as there are now.
Right.
And so my mom, we went to like we had this like college night at school, and we went and we sat in on the Purchase, you know, night, and you know, in the Purchase room, and my mom was like, I think it's great that you're interested in this, but like, what happens if you go there and then you decide like you don't want to do this? Like,
Yeah.
you know, like you'd be going to that school just for that. So then I went to Albany, and you didn't have to audition, and I didn't want to be an actor. I always
Sure.
thought I wanted to be a director.
Oh.
Because then in high school, like we didn't have a theater program even in high school. We had something called Sing. I don't know if
Yeah, of course.
you know what that is.
Yeah, of course. Yeah,
You guys
yeah,
know
yeah.
what that is?
Yeah, totally.
So, you know, Sing was really big at Forest Hills. Simon and Garfunkel went to my high school.
Oh,
and
wow.
they were part of Sing. Marvin Hamlish went to my high school.
Oh
Like,
my gosh.
There's like a lot of, you know, and so it was like a big deal. And so the first year there, I don't know why I tried out to be the lyricist, and we had to write parody lyrics, like say parody, but like we had to write lyrics to the song "Color My World" by Chicago.
Oh, sure.
Like we were given a topic, we were put in a room, like and I got it. Like,
Wow.
I never considered myself a lyricist or a poet or anything like that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I got it, and then I got really hooked on it, and then so in junior year I interviewed to be the director, and I got it.
Whoa,
And
cool.
then I was like, I love this, and then
Yeah.
in senior year I did it again.
And for those who don't know what Sing is, if you're not from New York, Sing is like it's essentially they task freshmen and seniors or sophomores and juniors, depending on what school you go to, they mix and mash it. And you write your own show, and you kind of take songs that are well known and then parody them.
Right. I mean, every Sing is different. Ours was, we didn't have freshman class, so it was sophomore, junior, senior. So each class did it. And you're right. You wrote an original script, and then you used existing songs, and you wrote lyrics to those songs.
You wrote lyrics, yeah.
And then there were like different requirements, and you got judged. And then like people would come back, like alumni would come back to the school and judge it.
Yeah.
And we were the first junior class since Simon and Garfunkel to win as juniors. It was like a big deal.
Whoa.
And then like things just kept happening, and I was like, oh man, this is so cool. And so then when I went to Albany, like I didn't really know what I was going to major in. And I took like an intro to theater class in my freshman year, and then again, you didn't have to audition, so I just joined I became a theater major.
Wow.
And you had to take acting and directing as part of the major. Acting, directing, movement was the you know, the curriculum.
Right.
Plus history and all that crap. But yeah, and then I kind of like was like, you know, and then I like started acting, and then, you know, I was like, I didn't really want to be an actor, but you know, like, I mean, it was definitely helpful for me to study acting for 4 years.
Of course. Yeah.
Being that I wanted to be a director. So anyway.
Why did you not like acting?
Why
was it not your thing?
You know, I did like it. And like when I got out of school, I did a little of it because I thought, oh, wow, I guess I'm an actor now, you know.
Right.
But I remember the head of the department, who kind of took a liking to me, said to me once, he said, you're a pretty good actor, but I can tell you're always watching yourself. And that's why I think you'd be a better director.
Oh, interesting.
So,
That's super interesting. Yeah. What was I going to ask you? So what was after, I always say, like, you know, after college and whatnot, especially as a theater major, it's like, what is the first, especially you're from New York, like, what was the first thing you did, especially if you didn't want to be an actor? What was your first steps?
Well, I stupidly got headshots.
Okay.
And my dad was a photographer, so like he took headshots that like, because he was going to save me money, and they were terrible. And then I went and got headshots. I probably still have, like, if I got 50 headshots, I probably still have 49 of them. You know, because like I was like, I don't know why
really
I got a job, and so the first job out of school just kind of landed in my lap. A guy I knew in my school went and worked at a camp called Bravo for the Performing Arts. It was the two owners had left Stage Door Manor, which is like the preeminent,
of course,
theater, and went and started this theater camp called Bravo. And he worked there, and he called me up, and he was like, "Hey, we had promised in our brochure that we were going to have a professional company come here and do the Fantastics, and alongside the kids. So the kids were going to do it, and then there would be this professional company.
Yeah.
And they didn't have anybody. They didn't really know what they were doing, and they never did it. So he was like, is it possible that you could scramble and put together a cast of the Fantastics and come, you know, like come here? And I was like, sure. And 2 weeks before we were supposed to do that, he called me up and he goes, hey, we fired a director. Can you be, I was living, I'd stayed in Albany after I graduated because I started a theater company, and I happened to be down in the city, and he was like, hey, we fired a director. Could you come and direct the show before you? And I was like, what's the show? And he goes, The Lark. And I was like, I don't even know what that is. It was about Joan, what do you call it? Joan, I can't remember what it was based on. All the theater people are going to be like, what kind of a theater person can you be? And it was such a heavy, serious play.
Oh, really?
And I literally got in my car, went to Albany, grabbed some stuff. I drove to Great Barrington, Massachusetts, and I like landed there, and they just threw me in a room with like, I hadn't even read the play yet. And so I ended up directing that. Then we were doing the Fantastics, and we had to kind of audition for them. Like the places, like I just got enough guys and one girl to come out. So the guys, and then I thought I was going to play the mute, which, you know, because I wasn't really a singer. And
Sure.
They cast me as one of the fathers,
Oh.
you know, and I sang, and it kind of pissed a lot of people off. And so that even made me more think like, oh, I'm an actor.
Yeah.
And then when I got to New York, one of the guys in the company, they hired one guy that wasn't part of us, and he got me a job doing children's theater. And it's funny that you just said that you did children's theater.
I did, and I still teach it.
Oh, do you really?
Oh, yeah.
Wow. Yeah. So I did children's theater for this company, and it was kind of a bizarre company. It was called Happy Times Children's Theater. It was in Hackensack, New Jersey.
Yeah.
And we would do shows like The Three Little Pigs and Little Red Riding Hood.
Sure.
But she also had the rights to shows like The Care Bears.
Oh,
and like
interesting.
And My Little Pony and things like that. And so like if you worked for the company long enough, she would put you in one of those shows, and you would go out and to malls around the country.
Oh,
so like,
wow.
So like I flew all over the country playing Professor Coldheart. and
That's so funny.
And you know, like I think we got paid like $1.50 a day.
Wow.
So for a weekend we were getting $450 in all our meals. And like that was a lot of money back then.
Yeah,
my rent
yeah.
was $250. So in one weekend I was making my rent times almost 2.
Yeah.
And so all that stuff happened without, like you said, like how did you get your start? What you do? Honestly, if none of that happened, I would not have known.
That's funny.
Like I would have not.
It's just kind of
serendipitous. Which I think
serendipitous.
is still an issue is at schools is like they teach the craft, but then you come out and they're like, and you're like, now what?
Well, in theory, like in every other profession, there's like, this is what you do next. Then there's a true,
Right.
and there's kind of like, you know, but in this one, it's like, I can tell you for my class, we were probably a class of almost 30, and each one of us did a completely different thing.
Right. Well, look, there's no book
Yeah.
on how to do it. And now it's definitely different than when I got out, because I mean, there was backstage and that was it.
Right.
And they had these things like, I don't think they do them anymore, but in backstage, they had these showcases, and you'd pay money. Do they still do this?
Oh, they still do them.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
And you would go, and some guy would put together these showcases, and like on the 3rd floor of some building somewhere, and claim that agents would come.
Yeah.
And they would do scenes. I didn't do it, but like that was the only thing I knew.
And now it's not. Now it's just that much more popular. And there's probably any given week in New York City, there's probably like 5 or 6 or 7 even showcases a week that, you know.
Really?
And they'll do it exactly that on like a 3rd floor of some random building.
Right.
And you paid like $400 to be a part of it, and you're going to sing a cut. You know,
I was convinced that, because the other thing is like when, I don't remember this because I wasn't really that into it, but like now almost, I mean, did you guys at Wagner, did you go do a showcase?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Like that wasn't a thing.
Right.
And now every school does a showcase.
Right.
So like, even when I started casting, like, you know, some of them, you know, there'd be like 10 schools that did them. And now I get in, like, I can't tell you how many invites.
Yeah. I mean, now it's even, I mean, after COVID, I graduated through COVID. So like we did a virtual showcase, and then you could just kind of skip to whatever you wanted and whatever. Right. It's significantly more appealing to casting directors and agents and managers, because they don't have to sit there for sometimes a 2-hour showcase with a class of 60 to, you know.
And some schools double up.
Yeah. Yeah.
They do 2 schools at one time because
Right.
they think that that's
more
saving
appealing.
you trips.
Yeah.
But you end up, as you're saying, you end up sitting through twice as long.
Right. And in truth, you might just need one person to come in one day, potentially, maybe.
Right.
So now I think that the virtual option or the film your media, send it out there, is significantly more appealing because people don't want to sit there for 2 hours watching, different versions of Friendship from anything goes,
Or a scene from The Odd Couple.
Yeah, right, exactly. A gruesome playground injuries, like everybody does that stuff. That's interesting. And it's also interesting to think about how much of, considering the fact that, you've made a huge majority of your career in TV film, it's interesting to think about how much theater set a precedent for you because you were an artistic director of Millbrook Playhouse for years. How'd you get that job?
The way that came about is the guy that was that's how like it was, everything that happened kind of like was dominoes.
Yeah.
So the artistic director of the camp that I was at, he asked me if I was interested in coming back the next summer and just directing for the whole summer. So I did, and just as a sidebar, Zach Braff was one of my campers.
No way.
And I directed a production. This next summer I came back, I directed a production of Annie, and Zach Braff played Sandy the dog.
No way. That's crazy.
And I was friends with Zach for years after that.
Yeah.
He brought me back
funny.
Next year, and I was kind of like, there was two stages. There was a main stage, and the other stage was, there were three stages. There was a main stage, which was actually a theater. It was old. It was on the campgrounds of this camp that had been something, I don't know if you probably not heard of this. It was called the Ted Mack Amateur Hour. It was a TV show back in the 50s, and that he used this camp. So there was an actual kind of theater, and then there was like just this big room that they used that was like a kind of a dance hall that they used as a theater, and then they used a cabin. That was the other thing. When I directed The Lark, it was like this really intense play in like a cabin where they just removed the beds and put like clip lights on.
Oh my gosh.
So that was like the first thing I ever did. But anyway, when I came back, I did all the main stage shows. So I directed Merrily We Roll Along.
Whoa.
Brigadoon, Annie, and I think that was it. Maybe there was one other show that I did.
Crazy. That's a crazy lineup. Wait.
And it was all like, it was, by the way, like, as you can imagine, like 90% of the campers were girls.
Right.
So my daddy Warbucks was this girl that we put a bald cap on. Zach Braff was the dog. I don't remember
That's crazy.
So he then, the camp, when I was there the second year, like, that's why I didn't direct the fourth show. Now I remember. They call me into the dining hall, and they're like, hey, they were kind of running out of money. They were criminals, and they were running out of money, and they said, hey, if you want to stay, you have to take on another job. And I was like, oh, like what? Like teaching a class or something? I already taught some classes, and I was like teaching more classes. They were like, no, could you be the head of the waterfront? And I was like, I'm not a lifeguard. And I was like, nah, I'm just gonna leave. And they literally, like, out of their pocket, like, they took cash, and they were like 601, 602.
Oh my God.
I got my car, and my director and my music director, my choreographer and my music director, we got in my car and we split. So there was no camp, and so the artistic director of the camp the next year got the job as the artistic director of the Millbrook Playhouse, and he brought me there as like the resident director / associate artistic director.
Cool.
And I spent 3 years there with him. Then we left and went and started a dinner theater at a place called Rockwell that ended up becoming Media, down in Media, PA, which is still there, I think. So we ran this dinner theater for like 2 years, and then I found out that the artistic director at Millbrook wasn't working out, and I went back and they were like, we'd love to have you, and that's how
that's cool. See, I want to just this is like a funny little anecdote. You did Merrily. This must have been like what, the 80s, late 80s, early 90s?
Yeah, I think I was there, and like I graduated. And
what version of Merrily were you doing? Were you doing like the original, like the? Oh wow, and that was licensed out there.
Well, no. Here's how it happened. I don't remember what we were supposed to do, and I get there, and the choreographer, who I'd never met, comes running over to me. He goes, we've lost the rights to, and I don't remember, like whatever we were doing, I think was on Broadway at the time.
Okay.
So they were like, we lost the rights. And I was like, oh. And I had prepared, like I'd spent like
Right.
a month preparing to do this, and he was like, "So I recommend it. Merrily We Roll Along," and I had never seen it. And
Yeah.
like it closed. I don't know if you
In
know
like
the
16
story,
performances.
right?
Yeah, of course.
And
Yeah, we had Jim Walton on, who was the
oh
original.
yeah, oh my God, yeah.
Yeah.
And so he was like, "We're gonna do Merrily We Roll Along," and I was like, "I don't know anything about that show, but cool."
Yeah.
And I actually, and this is blasphemous, but I had this idea that at the beginning, I put it was like a high school, and all the kids were like sitting around, and someone was like, "Hey, we should do Merrily Roll Along," and someone said, that show goes from the end to the beginning, because that was what the problem was apparently with the shows, that no one understood the idea that it started
Sure.
at the end and moved to the beginning.
Sure.
And that was my way. I thought it was so brilliant that like, and they were like, "Wait, so it starts at the end and starts at the beginning?" Like we said it like 3 times.
Yeah.
And they were like, "Great, let's go do it." And then they went and did the show. It was like a play within a play. So,
That's really funny.
But I have to say, afterwards, I was like, "This was the greatest score ever." Right? I mean,
It's probably my favorite music of all time, and it's certainly her favorite musical of all time.
Really?
And yeah, gosh, we're huge Merrily fans.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
And it's on DVD now. The 2023
The one,
revival.
yeah.
Yeah, they just came out with it on DVD,
Mm.
and it's great too. The movie. So you were artistic directing at Millbrook for what, like 4 or 5 years, right?
No, I was artistic director for 1 year.
Oh,
And then I interviewed to be the artistic director of a theater called Music Theater North that was located in Potsdam, New York, on the campus of SUNY Potsdam.
oh, okay.
And I was like, I don't know, 27 maybe.
Yeah.
And but it was a full-time job. Like
Right.
And they were like, so I interviewed and I beat out like 75 people around the country for this job, and I was blown. But I had to move there.
Yeah.
And and I don't know, I thought, sure, this is what you do.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
I remember when I interviewed, they were like, it snows a lot here, and I was like, so? And they were like, but like, have you ever been in a whiteout? And I was like, no, I don't know what that is. And they held a piece of white paper against my face, and I was like, oh, and they were like, that's what you will see. And they were right, man. Like it snowed there. Like this snow that we had here was amateur hour. Like
wow,
it snowed every single day there, and you had to walk. Like you couldn't drive, and so I move up there, and the woman who ran the place, who's the executive producer, I had heard bad things about her, but I thought this is my golden opportunity. Like my office was like Ziegfeld. Like it had a glass window, and it looked out over this beautiful state of the art theater on this college campus.
Oh, wow.
And like it was like I had like this was my dream. Like I was gonna like move up the ladder, and I was gonna be the artistic director of Music Theater North, and then it would go up, and then hopefully one day maybe Lincoln Center. Like that's what I really thought I wanted to do. And so I go up there, and then like about 3 months in, I was like, I can't do this. This is terrible. She was crazy.
Oh, sure.
And I was like living in a place where like I was 27, everyone was married with kids, and like so like. And they thought they needed someone full time. Like you don't need someone to live in Potsdam full time. So they were like, she was like making up stuff for me to do. Like,
sure.
Like she was like, asked me like, can you get refrigerators for the apartments? And I was like, how's that part of the artistic?
Yeah, right. That's not
because she didn't really have anything for me to do. Like,
sure.
And most of the work was like everyone hired there was from New York. So like, I don't know what I was going to do up there.
Yeah.
And I tried to talk them out of it, and they were like, nah. And I was like, all right, then I'm going to leave.
Right.
And so the minute I got home, Millbrook got wind of it that I had quit, and they were having a miserable time with the person who had taken my place. And they were like, will you come back? And I went back for 4 more years. So between being an associate and then I was there for like 8 years on and off.
Wow. So what made you leave Millbrook?
I was getting married, and my wife was like, I don't want to be married to someone who goes away to a summer stock theater every summer. But also I had, right before my last year there, I was reading backstage, and there was this ad that said Maryland Traveling Repertory. No, it said Maryland Theater Company for sale. And does Troika still exist?
That sounds really familiar.
There was this huge non-equity theater company called Troika.
Oh, it sounds familiar.
They were massive back then. Like so, what they would do, Troika would do. This guy named Ken Gentry ran it, and what they would do is they would do all the first non-equity productions tours. Like, so right after the Last Equity, tour finished, they would get the rights and then they would put it out on the road. And so I was like, oh my God. And they were located in Maryland. And I thought, oh my God, Troika's for sale. I got a call.
Yeah.
So I called, and that was far from the case. And it was this company called Maryland Traveling Repertory Theater. And this guy owned 2 vans and some stages and some like trusses and lights. And he would tour, like he toured Army bases and like I don't know, a lot of Army bases down there, but like he get hired to like do like these, and he would do shows like these like British farces, like Natalie Needs a Nightie, and yeah, they were like door slam, like they were like poor man's noises off, like
sure.
And so I had this idea that I was like, oh, I'll mount them at Millbrook, and then I won't pay for them, like, and then I'll take them on the road. And so after 1 year, I think it was Natalie Needs a Nightie that we did, and we took it on the road down there, and I was like, this is like too much. So I left Millbrook, and I was going to focus on this
interesting
touring theater company that I had bought. And so I had a scenic designer that worked for me for years, and I approached him about it. And then there was a director who worked for me there, and he had at the time worked for an ad agency called Sereno Coin, which is still around. Sereno Coin's still around. I don't think, maybe it's not called. They were at the time like the Broadway advertising agency.
Sure.
And I just knew that Evan was like an unbelievable salesperson. And I went to him and I said, look, I have this opportunity. And, and he, like, before I got it out of my mouth, he was like, I'm in as a partner. Right when then we buy this company for, again, not a lot of money. And the guy just wanted it off his hands.
Yeah.
And Evan gets a job at the Public Theater as the head of marketing.
Right.
And he calls me and he's like, hey, I got us a gig doing this corporate gig. And I was like, really? And he's like, yeah, it's this new coffee place called Starbucks. And it was the one on Astor Place, which was it was actually the second one. And they hired us to do like entertainment and like decor and like do the grand opening.
Sure.
And so we did it, and they became like a big client of ours.
Wow.
And we dropped that theater stuff like that because like we were making tons of money doing that.
Right.
That we opened up their first East Coast roasting plant, and like
wow.
Kenny G, like we built this whole concert hall in their factory, and Kenny G performed. He was like,
oh my God,
he was like best friends with Howard Schultz, but we decorated the place, and then they would just hire us. And
that's crazy.
And so we became a guerrilla marketing because Evan's background was in marketing. So we were the marketing company for Rent, for Lion King, for Bringing the Noise, Bringing the Funk, which was at the Public.
Wow.
Like huge. We did all of Disney. And, yeah. And so we did all these like guerrilla marketing campaigns for them. But then we did all this corporate entertainment stuff. So like Coke was a client, Toyota.
Oh my God.
And
that's
like
crazy.
The next thing I knew, I was doing something that I didn't really want to do.
Yeah.
It was entertainment related, but it was like
adjacent. Yeah.
Like we were doing like anything to make money, and
it
was just getting so far off. So we ended up Evan actually left to go take it. One of our clients was Court TV, which I think now became something else.
Okay.
And so he left, and we decided to close the company. And then I was like, kind of like, shoot, I don't know what to do. Like this, I was doing this, and then I'm jumping the gun here, but then this friend of mine, Mark Sachs, who I'd gone to college with, called me up, and he was like, he had offered me over the years. Mark had offered me like 3 jobs in casting, and I was like, I'm in theater, man. Like,
yeah,
because I really had this dream that I was going to be the artistic director,
right?
And I had just had my second kid, and I was like, sure. And I took this job with him as an associate, and I was, I was not the age that most associates start,
sure,
but I was like, sure, I'll, and I kind of like the idea of working in TV sounded kind of appealing. Like I had kind of run my course in theater a little bit.
Yeah.
It wasn't what I thought it was going to be. And I also just didn't want to bounce around the country, like going to be the artistic director in like Alabama. And like the reality started to set in. It's like, you're not getting that job at Lincoln Center.
Sure.
There's like Manhattan Theater Club, Lincoln Center. And there's like 5 theaters in New York.
The Public,
like, Playwrights Horizons. Like that was it at the time. And I was like, that's 5 jobs. So there's a good chance that I'm going to keep doing this. So when Mark offered me the job, well, I kind of had no choice because, my kid was born, and I took it.
Yeah.
And then I thought I was only going to do it for like a little while, and
Yeah.
while I looked for other stuff, and that was a long.
What were some of the first things that you were part of that you were casting in as an associate?
Well, Mark had been like the EVP or VP or something of Sony, and they changed regimes, and he left, and he was living in LA, and he was coming back to New York, and he was like, "I've offered you this job like twice, 2 or 3 times."
Yeah.
Because he had been in house at Warner Brothers. He offered me a job at Warner Brothers. He'd come back here at one point and offer me a job at CBS. It was called CBSP at the time. Now it's CBS Studios.
Yeah.
And I turned that down. I turned down the Warner Brothers job and maybe one other job.
Yeah.
And then he was like, "Look, I'm going to give you one more shot." And I was like, "I'm in."
Yeah.
He's like, "I'm leaving Sony," and I got 2 gigs. One was a show called Hack with David Morse and Andre Braugher. Exactly. It had been on 1 season, and they let the casting director go, and Mark took over. And the other show was a show called Tarzan that maybe it aired like 1 episode. It was on the WB.
Sure. Okay.
With Travis Kimmel played Tarzan, but it's shot in Toronto, but it took place in New York.
Oh.
So we were doing those 2 shows, and then again, I think Tarzan, like back then, like they don't really do this now, but like back then, and this probably happened in your lifetime, 1 episode and they canceled it.
1 episode.
Yeah, 1 episode of Tarzan and they canceled it. I think maybe they aired 2 more.
Yeah.
And then like, but because they had shot them.
Yeah.
And then Hack stayed on, and then maybe that, and it ended that year. Then Mark and I went out to LA together, and we did the show Numbers.
Oh, okay,
with David Krumholtz.
Yeah.
And we did another show, Numbers, and a show with an unknown comic at that time named Louis C.K. It was called St. Louis, and it was on CBS.
Oh, sure.
And no, you're not sure because you're thinking of the show he didn't. This show
I'm thinking of Louis. This
show never went.
Never saw the light of day.
It was I can't remember. I get confused about the HBO show, and I think mine was about like they worked as toy testers in a factory. And I think Dom DeLuise is...
Yeah, David DeLuise, yeah. This is Waverly Place, the dad.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow. David's probably pretty happy. David.
Oh, he's a huge core part of my childhood.
That we dropped David DeLuise's name.
Oh, yeah.
So David played his best friend, and it was like kind of like The Honeymooners.
Yeah.
And it was just like 2 couples, and it didn't go at CBS. Numbers didn't go, and they revamped it. And Mark was like, "I'm going to stay out here and see what happens." And I was like, "Well, I'm going back to New York."
Right.
So I'm back to New York, and with no job, I bounced around trying to do stuff for like about 6 months, and then Mark called me up and said, "I have this friend Julie Tucker, and she is looking for somebody, and give her." And then she called me. And
No, you're good.
She called me, and I literally, she's like, "I got these 2 pilots," and she was like, "When can you start?" Like she didn't even ask me a question.
Wow.
And the hilarious thing is, and if she ever watches this, she would laugh at this. Like 3 weeks in or 4 weeks in, she goes, "So when did you move from being a stage manager to casting?" And I was like, "I was never a stage manager." And I go, "That's Mark's friend, Michael." I said,
"Uh-oh."
I said, "You hired me thinking that I was like a stage manager, and you just hired me?"
Yeah.
And she was like, "Oh, I guess." She was like, "I trusted Mark." And,
yeah.
And even then, we did these 2 shows, a show called Love Monkey, that also was for CBS that never went. And or it aired a couple of episodes. I remember Jason Priestley was in it. And we did a show called Book of Daniel with Aidan Quinn, where Aidan Quinn played a reverend, and
that's funny.
And Jesus would haunt him.
Yeah,
like literally, like Jesus would appear. Jesus was played by Garrett Dillahunt, and that lasted like 3 episodes.
Oh, jeez.
And then I was going to leave. And then, I was like, "It was nice to know you." And then like, remember, she got something else. And then like, I ended up, we ended up being partner for 18 years.
Right. Well, I want to ask you about some of the shows that you worked on. And this was Tucker Meyerson casting. Is like, 6 Feet Under, right?
I did not do 6 Feet Under. That was Julie before I was.
Oh, before you were with him. But you did Nurse Jackie, right?
Nurse Jackie. Yeah.
Damages.
Damages was the first. Well, when I joined Julie, she had just finished 1 year of Rescue Me.
Okay.
And that was our first show together.
Yeah.
We were in Dennis Leary's office. So we did all of Dennis Leary's shows for years because of that. And then we got Damages. Damages was the first it was called Apostle Pictures, was Dennis's company. And that was, so Damages ended, I think it was our first show that went. I mean, Brooke of Daniel and Love Monkey just didn't last. So.
Right.
And so then we got Damages because it was an FX show.
Oh.
And Rescue Me was an FX show.
Right,
so
right.
They were like, and it was a Sony show. It was Sony for FX, and Sony did Rescue Me, and Sony did Damages. And so they hired us, and we got that.
And not only was it the first show that you guys did that together was huge, but you also won an Emmy for it.
Yeah.
I mean, that is so.
Which made Mark feel great because he had never won an Emmy.
Well, I want to ask you about a couple of things. What do you remember about that night? How far was it into the run of the show that you guys had won this Emmy?
We won it for the first season.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So we got nominated. Mad Men was the only other show that year that I can remember that was nominated, and I was sure we were going to lose to them.
Sure.
And so Julie had been nominated for doing the New York end of 6 Feet Under.
Right.
I remember she said to me, she's like, "I'm just going to tell you, it's a very long ceremony. Our award is like last.
Oh.
And so be prepared. Like, let's bring snacks, and it's going to be a long night. But and so they start, and they're like, and the first category is best, whatever they call it, best achievement in casting for drama.
Yeah.
And we were like,
oh,
that's
boy.
us.
Yeah.
And like, it's like a thing in life where you think like you've lived it. Like, not that I ever thought I was ever going to win an award.
Sure.
But like, you picture the way it's going to happen, but it happened like this.
Right.
Like, they just rattled off those nominees, and next thing I know, they said our name. And Julie had her shoes off. And you go on YouTube, it's
I watched
on there.
it.
So she like rushed in to put her shoes on, and I said, "You speak," because she didn't get to speak. I said, "You can speak," and we get up there. I look like such a goof up there because I was like, you turn around, man, and you're at, it was at this back then. I think it was at the Staples Theater, like downtown. I can't remember where it was at.
Yeah,
because ended up being nominated a couple times after that, and they changed venues. But that one was, I think, there, and you turn around and there's like this room full of people, including like a decent amount of celebrities.
Right.
And when I walked off stage, Tom Hanks was there, and he high-fived me.
Whoa!
And
cool.
I was like, so they said to us, "Do you want to go back to?" They said, "You're gonna do a little press." So they brought us to a press room, and they started asking you questions. And then they were like, "Do you want to go back to your seat, or do you want to go to the green room?"
Right.
And I was like, I'm taking full advantage of this. I was like, I'm going to go to the green room. And you walk in, and every presenter is there. And I remember Seth Green was there. This is like weird. Like, Valerie Bertinelli was there, but it was like kind of thing when you walk in and you're like, is this real? Like, is this happening? And I don't know why, but I called my parents, and my dad answers the phone. He goes, "Hey," and I go, "Hey, Dad, I'm at the Emmys and we just won." And he's like, "What?" "I'm at the Emmys and we just won. Wait, let me get your mom on the phone." And I'm like, "Oh my God." And then I hung out for a while, like with all these celebrities.
Crazy.
And then we went back to our seat, and it was a trip, man. Like, I remember that night just being like, I just couldn't go to sleep because I didn't want to go home.
Right.
There's always a big after party afterwards, which was really cool and stunning. And then I was nominated 7 more times, and I didn't win once. And it was like,
but Damages it's so interesting because Damages. So one thing that in specific that I wanted to ask you about Damages was Marty Short's role on Damages, because Marty Short is like this, and he still is like this goofy, loud guy, but Damages is known to be like Marty Short's other side. You know what I mean? Like, there's like
meaning what?
Well, just in the sense, like, I don't know if you ever watched him on like the morning show, that one little stint that he did on the morning show.
I did not.
It was like one episode in like the earlier episodes, and he plays like this guy who's like who got fired for sexual assault, and he goes from being like this like Marty Short short type
yeah.
to being like this like serious, you know. And for me, that was the first, I hadn't seen Damages, and so that was the first time I'd ever seen him make a turn like that. That like, and it seems like Damages was something that got people taking him seriously in a certain sense.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I can't. I mean, every year we kind of had like we had Ted Danson for the first 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Ted was. I mean, Glenn was obviously part of the
right, of course.
You know, but we had Glenn the first year. The main cast was Glenn, Rose Byrne, Tate Donovan, Jelko Ivanek, Tom Aldridge. Like it was a pretty stellar cast,
right?
And then Ted's role kind of got brought over into season 2, so he kind of spanned 2. And then after that, like every year we had John Goodman on one year. We had Marty Short on. We had William Hurt on, which was huge because he and Glenn Close had done The Big Chill together.
Okay.
And so I don't remember like what it was about. Like it's funny because I just done Dexter last year, where I had Eric Stonestreet on, which was also kind of like not what people, after coming up Modern Family for years, like I don't remember it being the same thing, with Marty being like, oh, we just want someone that they would never expect, or or just like it really wasn't done because I thought, oh, this is going to be brilliant casting. I don't really remember. I mean, it was a long time ago, so I don't remember what it was about the role that we thought about him and thought, this would be something that would be out of his wheelhouse, and he might be great at, and he was.
Yeah. Well, to your point about brilliant casting, I want to ask you, and it's maybe a silly question.
Did I say brilliant casting?
Yeah. I want to ask you, what do you think makes brilliant casting? I think that everyone has their own opinions, and everyone will watch something and go, God, he's an awful actor. Oh my God, he's the best thing I've ever seen. What do you think? What do you watch? How do you determine something when you're watching it that you're like, oh, that was really good casting?
I think there's there's a lot of subjectivity to casting, obviously. And I think I might have said this in class. Like, it's like dating. Like, we all can look at this, we can go in a bar, you and I can go in a bar and look at all the same people. And I'll be like, this is going to be my wife or husband for the rest of my life. And you'd be like, I wouldn't ever go near that person.
Right.
So there is taste involved. And there are things sometimes that I look at and go, I don't get it. Like, and everyone else in the world loves it.
Right.
And so, so I do think that there's just certain things that click for me when I watch something that I'm just like, that it was so brilliant. Like, and then there's others again, like we differ, different people are going to differ about it. So I don't really know that I have a definition for what I think brilliant casting is.
Right.
And this is going to sound silly. It's like, I don't know until I see it.
Oh, sure.
And then when I see it and it just hits me, just like it hits you, I just have a reaction to it that makes me go, wow, that was just so good.
Well, I also, to this point, is like, I think about casting in theater is like a lot of what it seems like is in play is also not abiding, but trying to fulfill the vision of the director and, or in this case, showrunner. So how much are you thinking about casting when you're seeing people, come in for different parts and thinking, oh, I really dig this person, versus I really think X, Y, and Z showrunner is going to dig this person?
There's definitely, look, it's also like sometimes, when I just start working with a showrunner, maybe I've seen something they've done before, but you still can't get in their head and understand what works for them and what doesn't. Then I've been lucky enough to do shows like Nurse Jackie for a number of years, although we switched showrunners in the middle of that show. So that was kind of weird. And that actually, the person that took it over is Clyde Phillips, who I now do Dexter with. So
that's funny. I didn't know that he did the back half of Nurse Jackie.
Yeah, that's how I met him originally. And the irony of that is, just as a sidebar, is we did the pilot of Dexter. And then I think it was supposed to shoot in Miami. I don't remember this whole story, but I think it was supposed to shoot in Miami. And then there was hurricanes, and they decided the insurance, so they moved it to LA, so we didn't stay with it.
I see.
And then I ended up working with Clyde on Nurse Jackie, and then he does the middle, I think he does season. Maybe he did part of season 1, but he does definitely 2, 3, and 4 of Dexter.
And then after,
and I didn't work with him. I've never met him.
And
then I end up doing Nurse Jackie with him, and then he comes back to Dexter and brings me.
I thought he was out. He did the first 4 seasons of Dexter, but then the back half 4 he didn't do.
He did not do.
So he came back with New Blood.
Right. So after we did, we did Nurse Jackie together. Then we did a show called Feed the Beast, which didn't last more than a season. And then I kind of like, he and I hit it off, and I just kind of became his guy, knock on wood, because I love him.
Yeah.
And so then when it was right after COVID, and I got a call from the line producer we had worked together with him also. And she said, hey, they're bringing Dexter back, and Clyde's going back to the show, and he wants you to do it. And I was like, that's so crazy, because after the pilot, I didn't do the pilot. I never watched the show again.
Oh, no way.
And I was like, I wasn't pissed, but I was kind of like, I'm not working on it. So,
yeah.
And so, yeah, I never wasn't like a Dexter head, and I never had to become a Dexter head.
Right.
Because the folklore is so important in that show.
Yeah.
And then, so when I did New Blood.
Right. So, I should tell you, so in 2022 or 2021, when they announced that New Blood was coming, I was like, I really should start watching this show, but I am not a binger. I don't like binge watching TV. And also I like giving myself breaks to kind of like absorb the show. So I've actually been watching Dexter over the course of the last 3 years. And so from 2021 to like 2024, I finished the original, and then I watched New Blood, and I'm in the middle of Resurrection now.
Do you consider yourself like a groupie at all?
Yeah, like I love the show. It's also just become like super comfort television for me, where
Dexter's comfort TV. Wow.
Yeah. But also I just find something about it. It's not, this is the wrong word, but it's a cozy show for me, where I really love Dexter. You know what I mean? Like, I love Michael C. Hall.
I was going to say,
Dexter.
I think that's Michael.
It's Michael. It's got to be Michael.
Because like you do want to spend time with Michael, like different way.
Yes.
Than say like on I can't think of it like a more like soothing, comforting show.
Right.
But like, because of Michael's performance, like you root for him.
Yes.
And he's an anti-hero of sorts. And
yes.
Like, and you just, so I get that.
And you resonate with the idea that he's an outsider and you're an outsider. You know what I mean? Like, there's something about it that you go like, I know what it means to not feel like you're a part of this, and that's for all of its ups and downs, Dexter. I just am so invested in the character of Dexter, and I was really invested in Deborah. Like, I loved their relationship together. And I got to meet her actually at a party once, and I was like, I want you to know, I didn't know anything. I didn't know what happened to her in the finale, and I sobbed, and nobody told me that anything. It was no spoilers.
You met her before you knew what happened?
No. I had like just finished it, and it was ironic that she was at this party, and because she's married to one of the Avett brothers.
I know Jen very well. Yeah.
Oh yeah. So we were at the Swept Away opening night party, and she happened to be there. So, and it was just like crazy because I just finished it, so I just was like, oh my gosh, I just watched you. I'm only 10 years late, more than 15 years late.
That's another crazy thing. I didn't do Dexter, and then I cast Jen on a show called Limitless.
Oh, no way.
That's how I got to know her. And then she and I actually have been working on some, again, not because of somebody then, a producing partner of mine called me, and he was like, hey, I'm doing the show with Jen Carpenter. You must know her. And I was like, I do, but kind of not.
Yeah.
The Limitless story is a great casting story. She wanted that part. She was really into that part, and she was pregnant. And I was like, the part's like the woman's got to run, and she was like, she will and so she auditioned, and she hid her pregnancy, so that the producers wouldn't know that she was pregnant. Or that it wasn't that she wasn't trying to hide it, but she wanted to prove to them that she could do this part.
Right.
And she got it.
Wow.
And that was like a total case of an actor wanting something and just
going for it.
And, right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. But what I was going to ask is that, because I was especially excited when I heard about Resurrection being in New York, because that is it feels like Dexter in a completely different, it's so different. But also what comes with New York is there's so many opportunities how many characters between guest stars and recurring and co-stars do you have per episode?
It's hard to say because, when we did New Blood, we did cast it out of New York because we shot
in Massachusetts, right?
We shot in Massachusetts, but it was during COVID. And so that was really weird because we had to shoot it by location because we couldn't change locations. So, Marcos, our producer and director who directs most of our shows, I just listened to him talk about it on a podcast, and I did not know that the first scene they shot was the last scene.
What? Wow, that's crazy.
And because they were in this, they had, one, there was weather, and two, the towns were only letting them shoot for a certain amount of time. So they had 4
Right.
blocks of location. So we had to cast that show like on the fly, man, because like we weren't like episode 10 was being shot at the
Right.
beginning.
Yeah.
And
And I imagine they were quarantining people probably.
yeah,
Right?
yeah. And so we couldn't fly people,
Yeah.
you know, and there was like a lot of restrictions on that.
Right.
So anyway, moving on to Resurrection. It's a lot, but there are a lot of recurring characters.
Right.
So we don't really have very many like one episode guest star like big roles because
Sure.
there were so many. I mean, Neil Patrick Harris was in one episode,
Okay.
but he was part of like
A
this
larger
bigger
arc.
group
Right.
arc. So
Right.
like it didn't feel like he was only on for one episode.
Right.
Yeah.
I imagine this was different back in the day, but with a show like Resurrection now, where you guys are doing a batch of like 10 episodes, right? Are you reading all 10 scripts pretty much? Like, do you know what happens?
I did on New Blood, I think, and I did on the first year Resurrection. Like we
Okay.
had at least 8 of the
Oh,
episodes.
good.
This season we haven't,
Okay.
which is I don't say less difficult or concerning because I know like we still go through the arc of it and I understand it and
Right.
and we get outlines, but like I think I've gotten 3 scripts so far.
Okay.
And we don't start shooting till April, but
Oh,
I'm like,
oh wow! I thought you started much earlier. Than
no,
that.
but
Okay,
I'm 2
gotcha.
weeks in.
And you guys are the first show that's shooting at Sunset, the
Yeah.
new Sunset Studios,
Yeah.
which is really cool. I've been seeing them build that for like years now.
know.
You know, and it's so cool. It's on the
And the
water
crazy thing is when I tell people, they're like, "Oh, I know what you're talking about."
because it's like
I'm
hidden.
like,
it
I didn't
feels
know
like.
what you were talking about.
Right.
Like,
It's more because we drive, just driving, you can't, it's on the west side, it's right off the west side highway. And you're like, what is this thing? And
it's
then
like on
just
52nd Street, right?
I think maybe even a little higher. But
yeah, somewhere in the 50s, yeah.
But it's like on the water. It's so cool. Have you seen it yet or no?
No.
Oh, really? Oh, it's really, really cool. It's really cool. And just feels like, I don't know, there's something about it that feels super lavish and like, fancy. But anyway, what was I going to ask? I wanted to bring this up because you mentioned this in class, is like with Dexter, you mentioned that in season 1, you cast something like, am I right in saying like 300 people? Is that too many?
Did I say that?
I think it was like something like 300 people throughout the season.
I don't know. There's a lot. Maybe there's 300.
And
I don't
out of
really
all of
remember.
them, you mentioned that there was only one person that asked to do a Zoom virtual audition, which is now an accessible thing for anyone who's in SAG.
Well, that's what it was then.
To request.
That's what it was then. I mean, that's how the whole thing came about. I Zoomed with a lot of people,
right.
but like a lot of the series regulars, like I Zoomed with them.
Yeah,
and
sure.
I did work sessions with them before
Right.
I brought them to producers. So we Zoomed with a lot of people. So like I just wanted to clear that up so it doesn't sound like we cast everything just off tape.
Oh,
and,
no. But this was
But
his initial.
this was like, so then during the season, I remember CJ mentioned to me, she said, we're required now to offer the
Right.
opportunity if somebody wants to audition in person.
Right.
On Zoom in person, meaning live,
Right,
like
right.
not, and
Just that they get the chance to meet you rather than just
right. And nobody took me up for it except one guy. And
Right.
I think I said this. I think the line was like, "Can I help you?" And I was like, of all the people, like that's the guy. And then he didn't show up for the audition.
Right, which is crazy.
That guy's sitting out there now going, "That was me."
Yeah, right. But what I think is interesting in bringing this up is that do you as a casting director, I think that a lot of actors would feel like, oh gosh, as much as that option sounds nice and better, I don't want to bother casting. I don't want to.
Oh God, I hope that's not the case. Like I know there's a divide, and I can't say what the divide is down the line, but I know there's some people who are like, I just would rather do it 25 times on my own.
Sure.
I don't want the pressure. And then there's a lot of people who miss, as I do, kind of missing being in the room and working and getting some input, getting structure and notes and help and
right.
But I don't think. Well, I don't know. What was your question?
Oh no, I was just saying if casting prefers that option, or is that an option that is poo-pooed in some sort of way?
I'm sorry.
You're good.
I don't think that any actor is. I hope no actor is saying, "Oh, I don't want to bother casting." Like I mean, I tell that story and I laugh about it because it just was so ironic that nobody else asked for a slot,
Right.
and I would have thought, God, we'll get tons of people wanting the opportunity,
Right.
I I don't want to say this because I don't want to make a habit of it, but look, there's always the opportunity to come in and be like, hey, can I now go tape it on my own now that I worked with you? And you can still go off
Sure.
and tape it,
Sure.
without the pressure of getting the right
Yeah.
take. But the thing is that, what happens sometimes is sometimes actors will say that to me and I'll work with them for like 45 minutes and then I'll get their tape and I'll be like, what happened?
Yeah.
Like, why would we had it?
Right.
Like, why wouldn't you just let me,
Right.
mark that and have that? If
Put it in
I'm
there.
telling you that's the tape, why
I trust
argue?
you
Not
more than I
argue,
trust
but
me
why
even.
not? Why not trust me on
Right.
it? And then they go off, and then I don't know what happens to like the retention for what we worked on. Just because
Fades.
I think you're also then spending time in your head going, wait, I just want to make sure I'm getting what Ross said, and
Right.
and that
Right.
just complicates the whole process.
Yeah. How many people would you say that you're bringing in for each part that is those primarily being guest stars and co-stars and maybe even recurring? How many people would you say come in for one of those characters?
It depends. And this is like even back when we were in person.
Mm-hmm.
It depends what the role is. Like if I'm casting like a 55-year-old like sergeant, I'm probably not bringing as many people in
Right.
as I am if it's a 25-year-old, out of college. I don't know what the role would be, but a 25-year-old, because I probably don't know as many 25-year-olds, and it's my opportunity
Right.
to meet
Right.
more people.
Right.
So I'll open it up to see
Right.
more. But also because I don't have, people always ask me, like, when you read the script, like, when do you start thinking about casting? And I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, probably the minute I'm reading, because like sometimes when I'm reading, like someone will pop in my head and I'll just, write it down.
Right.
I'm not doing that as I'm reading, but I can't help myself, but once in a while, I'll be like, oh, that's perfect for so-and-so,
Mhm,
or I think
mhm.
so-and-so would be great.
Right.
But that's not going to happen as much with maybe, people, closer to college age coming out of school.
Right. Right. Well, I was going to ask to the same point is like, how do you decide? Is it based on you're familiar with their reps? Is it based on a headshot, a reel? Do you?
Yeah. I mean, let me just go back and say when we were live,
Yeah.
I did have to be more cognizant of, I would either pre-read people, and then maybe call some people in that I felt that I knew,
Right.
some new people mixed with some people I knew that I didn't pre-read,
Mm-hmm.
and then because I had to be cognizant of like how many people I was bringing in for the director and producers.
Right.
Like I couldn't bring in 25 people for them. Like
Right.
I had, I'd have 10 roles and I only had 3 hours with them or 2 hours,
Right,
whatever
right.
it was. So I had to be more, a little bit more careful about and calculate it. Now that I have, that it's just me, and still I'm probably only sending. Again, it depends.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't have a number. Like I'd like to say 6, but if there's 8 people I like, or if there's only 4 people I like, I'd like to keep it where I think it's enough people, but not too many people.
Right.
But as far as why I would pick somebody new, that could also be a million things, because it could also depend on the role.
Yeah.
Say I'm casting a linebacker, and I'd be like, I'm going to start. My first thing is I'm probably going to start to look for people who are physically, I think, to play a linebacker.
Mm-hmm.
And so before I'm looking at credits, maybe that's the first thing.
Right.
But if I'm casting something that's maybe a little more physically generic and doesn't need to be, then I might be paying more attention to.
Especially like something like a waiter role like that "Can I help you" thing. It's like,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
so wide.
And like actors try so hard. They ask me this. They'll show me their pictures and they'll be like, "This is my this shot. And this is my this shot. And this is my this shot." And, and like you can't. Like,
does that stuff matter as much as?
They think it does.
Yeah.
I say they as if you're not an actor. They try to think that they're going to post the right picture for the right role. And there's definitely like if I'm reading a script and it says, waiter in a restaurant, I will ask, like, what kind of restaurant is it?
Sure.
Because it does, if you're waiting at a diner,
Mm-hmm.
it might be somebody different than, that's at like a 5-star restaurant.
Right.
And
right.
so so your headshot there might, because what could you have on your resume that's going to tell me,
Yeah.
like that your experience level is right to say, what can I get you?
Yeah.
So that might be based on that. It's at like, a 5-star restaurant. I want somebody who I think I would believe would be hired.
Right.
You
Right.
know,
Right.
Like that. And do I always get it right? No,
Sure.
and can you always get it right with, but I don't think actors should be second guessing what picture to post and how many pictures to post on Breakdown so that you run the gamut of every single role, because you
Right.
can't.
Well, I have my like nerdy shot and my
Right.
bad boy
But
shot
you
and
can't,
my
you can't cover everything.
right.
You
And
know?
I could hope that if you see me in a leather jacket, giving you like a straight look, that you could assume that I smile too. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, look, again, in that regard, it's all subjective. Also, don't try to be something that you're not
Right.
by wearing a flannel shirt or like wearing a leather jacket. Like, if you don't feel comfortable and that's like, you can't deliver that, like
Yeah.
whatever that leather jacket represents, like hilarious. Like whenever I read female cops, like everyone comes in wearing a black leather jacket, jeans, and harness boots.
Yeah.
Like, it's like 9 out of 10 people come in are wearing that outfit. Like, that's like the go-to outfit
Right.
for like female detective.
Right.
And so, but like on your picture, like you can't just, like you'd have 150 shots if you
Right.
wanted to try to have every shot for everything that you thought.
Right, right. I asked you this question in class, but you gave such a great answer that I want to ask you again. Is the idea that I'm going and I'm taping, and how many times do you watch a tape where you go, gosh, if I just tweak that one little thing, how many times do you find yourself doing that, or do you do you really have to hit the nail on the head?
No, like I think I said this in class for me, and I don't know if this is the answer that you're remembering, but
Yeah.
my thing is like, I break scenes down into beats, and I have moments and turns and moments, and like, it's, to me, as you know, I make a lot of sports analogies, but it's like you're watching somebody run down the field, and like you watch them get to 20, 40, 50, and then
Right.
you're like, and like every 10 yards that they run, you're like getting closer to the finish line. But maybe they cut the wrong way, and you're like, oh, why would you do that, man? Just like, you could have just kept running straight. That's what happens to me. Like, if you don't make the first turn and you don't understand what the scene is about, like, I can tell usually within 4 lines that you don't understand what the scene's about at all. And maybe I'll give it some more time to hope that you like then correct yourself. But it's very rare. Once I see that you're not really on track of understanding what the scene is, the story is that you're telling, then I probably start to tune you out.
Yeah.
And then there's some people that, like, everything that I have in my head about how I think the scene, what the story is in this scene, if you're hitting every beat, and then like there's one beat that I think once in a while I'll be like, I'm just going to send that because I think it's enough. But there's sometimes I'm like, if I can fix that one moment, I think that's going to be the thing that's going to put them over the top and bring you closer to getting the role.
Right, right. To this point, I want to ask you about the idea of picking up the pace, which is something that has become synonymous with you on many different fronts, but I think is something that's a little more nuanced than the idea of just go fast.
That's right.
Yeah.
Because it's rhythm, not it's not pace, it's rhythm.
Right.
Right. And yes, there is an element to it that if someone watches this podcast and listens to you and I speak, we speak faster than than so many actors do when they're auditioning, because they're acting and they're playing every moment, and they're and I think it's like, I think I said Uta Hagen says something like, if I can see the acting, it's not good acting.
Right.
And so I think when people, a lot of times I'll give that note and people will say like, yeah, I'm told I speak too quickly. And I'm like, there's a difference between speaking too quickly and speaking at the pace and tempo and the rhythm and the tempo
Right.
that we speak in real life. And that's why I always use that analogy about how writers are told are given this assignment in some classes in screenwriting. They're told to go and go to a park, listen to 2 people speak, go home and transcribe that conversation, because it helps writers learn about how to mimic real life rhythms in conversation. And when some writer told me that, I was like, and maybe it was just his class, but when I heard that, I was like, oh my God, actors should do the same thing.
Yeah.
You'll see it in my class. Like, I'll stop and I'll speak to somebody, and then I'll stop them and go, do you see how you're speaking now? And I'll turn to the class and I'll say, does anybody think that they're racing through?
Right.
And 9 out of 10 times, 10 out of 10 times, they'll usually say no. And I'll be like, you are speaking so much faster than you are speaking in your audition, because that is the way people speak.
What is that about? Why?
Again, I think you get in your head, look, it is such a difficult thing to let yourself go and be so, if you can be so vested in the material that the material is second nature, you probably will not get into that habit.
Right.
It's when, and this is such a hard thing about acting, is like there is always that part of your brain that is watching yourself, like I did, and making sure that you're hitting all the things that you worked on in the audition, and you want to make sure. And in doing that, you become a little mannered and a little, I don't know how else to say it, but like you start to act, because you're trying to play the moments that you've notated. He's angry here, and he's sad here, and she's this there, and and that I think slows down the tempo and the rhythm,
right?
And so as far as the rhythm that I talk about is like not everything in a scene is important. And so if you're dwelling on everything, and that's what I think too many actors fall into the trap of, is thinking that everything is important. And then, as you'll hear tons of acting teachers and casting directors say, is everything is important, nothing is important. So that's where the rhythm comes in. But yes, I'm glad you're bringing up that question, because so many people leave my class and they just think that Ross just wants you to speak quickly, and that's not what I teach, and that's not what I preach. And,
right.
And again, in the class that I taught with you, it's 2 classes of 3 hours each.
Right.
And so it's hard for me to really go over and over again until you start to really, truly, by example, understand what I'm talking about.
Right. And I think too, what I found, what really resonated with me was, to your point about everything's important, nothing's important, is identifying what is the, it's like when you're a kid in second grade and there's like, what is the subject of the sentence? It's like finding, okay, what am I trying to, when you do that, it assists you in finding, what am I trying to communicate here? Like right now, my intent is to get this point across. So I'm not going to dwell on, I even think about it sometimes with musical theater writing, is like sometimes you'll see the rhyme or the note go up on the word the, and all of a sudden
I said that. It's like, yes, if the difference is that when you're singing, is like there is a composer telling you, giving you that rhythm and that tempo, and we don't have that, nor should we.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, we shouldn't. You don't want the writer to notate and say, take a beat here. Here's your rest note. Here's your quarter note. Here's your eighth note. Yeah. That has to come from your instinct and knowing. Whereas in songs, that doesn't. You still then do in a song put your touch on that. Of course, right? Yeah. And so that's why.
But you have a little bit more of clues. It's like, okay,
there's a framework for you to start from.
Yeah, totally.
A lot of it also just seems like, and that's what you were talking about, a lot of the slow pacing, is that it's like a tightrope. When you're first on it, you're going to go slow to get across, because you're trying to balance everything at once.
I use I use the analogy of a roller coaster, that when you're going up that roller coaster and you're going really slowly, you have all the time to think, and you just overthink, and you're saying all these things and you're thinking all these things. When you're going fast down the other side, that's when your instinct kicks in. You don't have time to think about how you're going to, you just scream because your instinct tells you to scream.
You equate it to writer's block, which you can get so in your head.
Maybe,
it all just gets.
But it's such a good point, though. It's like the idea that you have no choice, but when you're going on the decline there, to just like.
And that's an over exaggeration.
Sure.
But what you and I are doing now is a perfect example. You had your notes, you knew what you wanted to talk to me about, but yet you didn't rehearse how you were going to say something and how you were going to emphasize something to get me to say the right thing back to you.
Right.
Sure. It's just your instinct. You knew what you wanted to get me to say, and your instinct knew what the point is. You didn't have to rehearse it.
Yes.
And if every actor can get to that point, then the conversation would feel more like your my conversation.
Right. What do you find is the biggest difference in theater and TV film? It feels like this age-old question of like, theater is bigger and TV is more, isolated, but I've heard this thing, and like we had AJ Shively come on, and he gave this idea that like it depends on your frame. So he's like, sometimes in TV film, there's, you know, the shot could be a wide shot, and all of a sudden you are playing that toward that whole frame. And in theater, your frame is the proscenium, versus in a close-up, your frame is here, so you have to focus a little bit more on that. What do you find is the biggest difference, and do you find that stereotype to be true, that like theater actors are too big? You know,
No, because I think I said this in class too. I think I said to you, when you're on stage, you're not playing to the back of the house. You're the back of the you could if your performance is so on the money and so and so I guess I don't know how to say it, but you're drawing the last how can you say like, well, the back of the theater I have to play bigger to, but there's somebody in the front, so like right, so your performance has to be even, and so your hope is that what you're saying and the story that you're telling is so specific and so clear that the person in the very last row is getting the same thing as the person in the front.
Yes.
And so how is that different than television? Right, you're not having to be big because, you know, the crazy thing is some musical theater performances that I see that are so, you know, so beautifully captivating are because they're not being big because it's a song, because not every song is the same. You know, the opening to Forum is not the same as ballads are not the same as production, you know, big numbers. So you know, I don't, as far as what AJ's talking about on set, I can't really speak to that because I don't truly, you know, and I've never heard a director say, like, you know, in the room with me, like, I want to see what he can do with a close up or a, you know, like, we never talk about anything else but acting. You know, like we don't talk about I have one director, the director of the pilot of Damages, always wanted a screen in the room, so that he said, this is the medium which I'm going to see it, and that's the medium I want to watch it, and then I'll work with them. He's the only person I've ever heard say, I need to watch them, you know, in the medium that I'm going to eventually see them on. Everyone else, like, has always just worked with an actor straight on. They judge the acting based on what they're seeing, and then, you know, I've never had somebody call me up and say they just didn't know how to play to the camera.
Right. Yeah. That's I think an interesting point, because there is this concept of like, if I'm going to say it this way in musical theater, I'm going to say it this way, and I'm going to.
And I think that's some of the problems with theater actors when they're trying to make the move into television, is they hear that so much that they end up doing nothing for the sake of doing nothing. As I talked to you about it in class, about the Sanford Meisner expression of acting truthfully under imaginary circumstances, or living truthfully under imaginary circumstances, is you have to pay attention to what the circumstances are. And if the circumstances are large, then, and you are committed to those circumstances, like a clown is committed to those circumstances. And so kids laugh at clowns because they believe them, because that clown is committed to what it is they're doing. And no one has ever said, that clown's too big. Of course he's big. That's the circumstances of what he's doing. You know? And then there's other stories that are much more quiet and nuanced, and you have to commit to those circumstances. So you have to pay attention to what the framework of your circumstances are, and be truthful to those, and act truthfully during them, and we believe it.
Yeah, totally. You get this question all the time, I'm sure, but I want to touch on it briefly because I do know that it means a lot to people, is social media and the, you know, the guise of social media, the kind of, you know, how important is social media in what you do in terms of, you know, looking at people and in terms of background checks, and in terms of branding yourself and all this stuff. How much do you find yourself?
I mean, in terms of branding yourself, like, I don't think you'd ever want to brand yourself unless you're if you're a content creator and you are creating content that you hope will, you know, that you can what do you call it, reframe into a different medium, like you create short form content on TikTok or Instagram or something like that, and then someone watches you and goes, that would be great as a long form series on television, and it's happened to people, and so if that's what you're doing for the sake of doing it, that's great. But I don't think anybody, I don't know that I would worry about that thinking that a casting director or director is going to see you and go, oh, look at his brand.
Yeah.
And the numbers, I think that where the numbers, and having produced some independent films, I would say that's the only time where I would pay attention to people's followers, because marketing budgets are lower. And so if someone's got 2.5 million followers, there's and you cast them in a low budget independent movie. And when I say low budget, I'm talking about, $1 million to $5 million,
Right.
where you don't have the marketing budget of studio film.
Right.
You hope that those people will then go on with their 2.5 million followers. And if half those people watch your film, you've just got 1.25 million people. And I've actually heard this in the book world, that book publishers now, for the same thing, that's what numbers, it's different there. Numbers, they'll go to social media people with 2.5 million followers, because again, if half those people buy that person's book, that's not true when I'm casting, a network series. Like,
Right.
Again, it's been around for a long time, and I've yet to. I think I once said to, maybe to Clyde, but it was like a cameo, and I said, "Oh, he's got 2.5 million followers," and it was like, phew, like,
Right.
He didn't care.
Yeah. That's interesting. I want to ask you a state of the industry question. What have you seen lately? What are you watching lately that you really latched onto? And also speak a little bit to the first year that casting is being incorporated into the Oscars, which is pretty exciting.
Yeah, that's very exciting. I don't do a lot of movies, so I have done some movies, but
Sure.
I think for people who do movies, I don't understand why it's taken this long.
Yeah, I was surprised to know that I was like, oh, then next there's going to be a casting Emmy. I didn't realize that had already been in existence for years.
Yeah, the truth is like there are some people who don't really understand what goes into casting, and
Right.
and so they think, well, it's a collaborative effort, and like when you write, if you write a character per the WGA, you say like in the middle of the series, you create a character, you get paid for that character every time that character appears.
Wow.
We don't. That's not how it works with us. Like if I introduce someone who ends up being a series, like their character takes off and they end up, and I think that's part of it is because they think it's a more collaborative effort where the director and the showrunner are, they don't know who suggested that person, and so it's a little bit more ambiguous in the casting world, and I think because of that, maybe that's why it's taken a while for casting to get its due, and but a lot of people will say, like if the cast is not, and that's not, if the cast isn't good, like that's where it starts. And, well, it starts with the writing, but then if the cast doesn't take those lines off those words off the page and bring them to life, then the best of writing could also die.
Right.
So
right.
So I think maybe they just started to look at the bigger picture, and not, and yes, maybe one person was chosen by the director, or maybe I mean, I didn't cast Glenn Close,
Sure.
She came with the project,
Right.
but I don't think that should judge the rest of the
Right.
series.
Right.
And so that's taken a while.
Yeah.
I think for people to pay the respect that it deserves.
For sure. What have you watched lately? What have you been seeing lately that you're really digging right now?
There's so much that I watch a lot of 1 and 2 episodes of everything. To like, I've just watched 2 episodes of The Pit. I watched an episode of Task. I watched Heated Rivalry.
Oh, sure. Sure.
And then like, so I watch a lot of that, and then I try to land on something. So like, this is my new round of new shows that I have on my list, and those, The Pit, Heated Rivalry, and Task are the new things because they've been mentioned to me.
Right.
So like, it's just so hard.
It is hard. There's a lot of stuff
for me to cover everything.
Yeah.
So like, I try to touch a little of everything, so I can at least speak as
what's going on in the industry.
Right.
Yeah. And I want to ask you a little bit about this new season of Dexter and what we have to look forward to, because I'm highly looking forward to it, even though I haven't quite finished the first season of Dexter Resurrection.
Ooh.
I know. But yeah, I guess talk to me a little bit about Dexter season 2. Are you guys, are you in the thick of it yet?
Yeah. No, we started, I started 2 weeks ago.
Nice.
So I know what, who our big bad guys are.
Nice.
I'm very excited about it. I will say that I've had some great, I've worked on, people always say like, what are your favorite shows? I thought Damages, which, I mean, there's very few shows. I mean, I did 6 years of White Collar, and
Yeah.
for different reasons, I loved working on that show. Last year on Dexter was just it was just, I don't want to say it's life changing, but to be afforded the opportunity at the beginning of the year to say, look, here's our goals and here's what we want, and go out and get Peter Dinklage and Uma Thurman, and then doesn't stop there. Now go, we want you to go get, and then getting Kristen Ritter, Eric Stonestreet,
Crazy.
Peter
Neil Patrick
Dinklage,
Harris.
Neil Patrick Harris, David Dastmalchian, who I didn't really know David's work, and someone introduced me to him, and he's like, in his genre of work, he's just like,
Who does David play?
He played the Gemini.
Okay,
twin.
sure.
Are you up to that?
I don't think so.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was gonna say the reason why
If you waited this long, I should just.
Yeah,
spoil it.
I know. You should just tell. Yeah, I know. I should ask you though about the guy who plays well, first of all, two people that I thought were just outstanding in that show was the guy who in the first half of the show is killing people because his dad had the taxi medallion, and he you know what I'm talking about? He was the first serial killer who had
a Red
who looks like Michael C. Hall.
Michael ends up taking on his.
Yeah. So cool. He was great. And then the guy who plays the taxi driver who becomes Dexter's, like, where he starts. He was also fantastic.
There's a great story about Antari. Antari was in NYU grad school with my roommate.
Whoa.
And so I met Antari at NYU grad school.
No way.
Yeah, and that's a lot of years ago.
Yeah.
And so at our opening night, this is great. He brought like 5 of his classmates, and I saw all these people.
Wow.
And, it was crazy. Like I was like I kind of lived their life when they were in grad school because my roommate was in there, and I went and saw every show, and I knew everybody in the program. And so it was really a great moment to come
that's
full circle
awesome.
with Antari. And Mark Menchaca, I think, played the Red.
Mm-hmm.
And I've known Mark for years.
Oh, yeah.
And I love that Mark's getting his time, because like he was the kind of guy that like I just brought in so much, and maybe I've cast him before. I can't remember. And then he got this arc on Ozark.
And, yeah. He's awesome.
And then, so when I had the opportunity, and so now I was casting him kind of on the other side of, I'm going to say success,
Sure.
where I was able to offer him the role.
Right.
It's such a great thing.
Oh, that's so cool.
He
was Julia Garner's uncle in that.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. That's so cool. We have a tradition on the show where we manifest a dream guest. We always manifest someone to be sitting in this chair. And so manifest anyone for us, anyone living. It could be, we've gotten the likes of like Carol Burnett to like Jonathan Groff and Debbie Allen, and could be whoever you'd like.
Wow. I mean, if I'm keeping it in the entertainment world, I know that, later on in life, I found out he was pretty curmudgeon-y, but when I was growing up, I thought Groucho Marx was the funniest thing ever in the world.
Yeah.
And like, there's so many, like, if I had my druthers, I'd work in the comedy world,
right? All the time.
And so there's a lot of old comedians from back in the day that I grew up loving. And,
right.
I mean, I was too young to, I didn't grow up when Groucho was on.
Sure.
But like, my dad introduced me to the Marx Brothers, and I thought that they were the funniest thing that ever. And so, it would just really be cool because he was such a fast, he hosted the show called You Bet Your Life, and in later years, and he was so wickedly sharp and funny. I'm sure if I met him, I'd probably be heavily disappointed because I do understand he wasn't the nicest guy in the world.
Sure.
But that's that. I don't know why that's the first name.
Yeah. Have you seen this new Mel Brooks docuseries that Judd Apatow came out with this weekend?
The new Judd Apatow
Mel Brooks docuseries.
Oh no, I haven't.
Really good, and they talk about how Marx Brothers inspired him as well. And
really,
oh yeah, and they show clips.
I mean, Mel Brooks is now that you say Mel Brooks, I'm like, I grew up on Blazing Saddles, and and all his.
It's like
movies,
the greatest comedy movie ever.
Frankenstein, and and like that was like when I was a kid, like when a Mel Brooks movie came out, like I can't think of like that now. Like I can't think of. I mean, I know people love Judd Apatow, but I don't know that there's a filmmaker now that you go, oh my God, Judd Apatow's new movie's out. I gotta go see it.
But in comedy, you mean?
in any genre. Like,
Oh, really?
Like maybe
Like
there's
Scorsese or like
yes, but he's 90. You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
like
yeah.
he
in
is
his
from
yeah.
a year.
Yeah, yeah,
Maybe Wes Anderson, maybe
Christopher
Paul
Nolan.
Michael Thomas. You know, but
Yeah, Chris Nolan
Chris
for
Nolan,
sure.
but they don't come out with films like back then. Mel Brooks coming out with a film like
Pumping them out.
yeah, like there were so many Mel Brooks films.
Blazing Saddles and Young Frankenstein, I did not know this came out in the same year.
Yeah, that's
nuts.
crazy.
That's
And
nuts.
so like, and then he had like a lot of the same actors. So like,
Right.
I looked forward to those movies growing up because I knew one was going to come out. Like I wasn't
Right.
waiting for 3 or 4 years till Chris Nolan made, you know, because movie making now is just so much more difficult.
So much
and,
more
like,
difficult,
They don't have that kind of world. So yeah, Mel Brooks is another great example of somebody
Right.
like I just thought was prolific growing up.
And you have this production company now that you've started, and what you know what makes you decide on on what projects to pick? Like what excites you about things like even Dexter? It's like what do you see in a script that makes you say, not that you're producing Dexter, but I'm just saying as a producer as well, what is the thing that makes you go, oh, I want this to be out there?
I'm gonna steal a phrase that is one of my producing partners uses to death.
Yeah.
But he when we meet with people, he says we do one for the real and one for the meal. And meaning I look for, I'd love to ultimately get to a place where I could, make some money off of my producing projects.
Of course.
So we did a horror film that's coming out soon called The Yeti.
The Yeti, yeah.
And like I'm not a horror guy.
Sure.
But we had a distributor who was like, hey, we're looking for a creature feature, and we knew these guys who had the script about the Yeti, and now it's crazy because like there's like 3 more Yeti movies coming out now.
Oh boy.
And, it's like the new hot, creature.
Yetis.
And so we knew that was a marketable thing, but it wasn't like the thing that I like grew up like wanting to make. And then I have another movie that deals with the trans world, and that's been a big part of my life.
Sure.
I was on the board of directors for the Gender and Family Project for a number of years, and so when this script came across my desk, I was like, this. Maybe, I don't care if this makes me $1. Like this is a script I want to develop. Out there. So like I'd like to pay for your habit. You need to do the things that are
of course
make you money.
Of course, yeah, totally. We started the podcast by asking you who is your I want to be like you when you were a kid, and we want to end the podcast by asking you who is your I want to be like you now. And it could be anyone, it could be someone in your life. It doesn't have to be a celebrity. It could be whoever you'd like.
Wow. Who would I like to be now? I mean, maybe it is Judd Apatow because because like I'd love to play in the comedy world like he does, and have the opportunity to, like I think Judd could pick up the phone and probably call any, like I spend a ton of time just because I love it. I mean I knew you, but I can't, like as we joke, I came across you on TikTok.
Yeah,
I love watching TikTok because I discover talent and comedy, singers too, but. Like whenever I come across a comic, and it's not even because of my, like I always have this thing is like if I ever decided to give up casting and become a manager, because I do love working with talent, and given the opportunity to, I like see comics all the time, and I go look them up and I see if they have agents, and I play this game of like, oh, what if I discovered this person, and so to be in the place like where someone like Judd is, where like I could see that person and then have the ability to then really do something with that person.
Right. That's pretty
like,
special.
Like I met, my thing is I met Rachel Brosnahan, and like at that time, if I wasn't casting and I was like producing then, and I had a project, and like people always ask me, it's like how often do you meet somebody right away and you just know, like she was the one, that's the person who rings the, comes out, comes to the front of my mind.
Right.
And like, I'd love to have that opportunity. So I don't know that Judd's the person, but he's representative of a person who like has that ability to get things made. And
for sure.
And with whomever he, wants to do it with.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I love what he did with Lena Dunham. Like he saw someone put tiny furniture on his desk, and he watched that movie, and then he wrote to her. Yeah. And that's how Girls came about.
So cool.
And like, I would love that.
And it's interesting because someone like Judd is like, he is the marketable thing in a way. It's like kind of like, I don't know if you're watching Pluribus right now, but like Vince Gilligan is the marketable thing about that show.
Right.
While Ray Seahorn is a star in her own right, she's a star because of Better Call Saul. Vince Gilligan just puts whoever he wants, and it's like, it's the new Vince Gilligan show, and he's the marketable.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's like, if I could be one of those guys, Judd just rings, like I'm trying to think of another comedy. I mean, it's Adam Sandler. I worked with Kevin James for a while, but I worked with Dennis.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
like when I worked for Dennis, like I love that Apostle world. They had like a really specific genre of
Paul Feig too. Sorry, it just came.
I worked with Paul, man.
Yeah.
And you know, before, like, I mean, obviously done Freaks and Geeks.
Yeah, yeah.
But he did that with Judd Apatow.
Yeah, yeah, right, exactly.
You know?
Yeah, right.
So that's why I guess I'll always come, you know, come back to Judd.
And then he can go and make these Mel Brooks and you know, documentaries and Gary Shandling documentary that he made.
Yeah,
and,
I saw that.
You
that
know,
was great.
Yeah. So awesome. Thank you so much for I thank you so much for being
dude.
here. This is such a pleasure. And I want to say too, like, on top of it is like, I have to endorse your class tenfold because it was so much different. And I was coming home to them and being like, you will not believe. And then I'll go and I'll have like 3 pages of notes. And I'm like, you won't believe this story. You know what I mean? And it's pretty amazing to me, the amount of work you're able to accomplish within tweaking something and working on something and then pulling something back. And you know what I mean? There's something about it that's that I find is much different than any other class I've ever taken. So I apprate you. And that's why I wanted to make sure
Absolutely.
you came on.
Let me just punch that in, and I appreciate that because, and I'll just throw this out, you know, to actors, is like what I found about you when I saw, you know, like you didn't write to me, you give me that you dropped my name in one of your things that I just happened to come across, right, and if I don't come across that, you don't know that I've ever seen it, and I thought, look, I'm glad I touched this dude, and like the fact that he just went online on his own, didn't send it to me to say, hey, look, I just want to, you know, kiss your butt and tell you how great I think you were, and it's just serendipitous that I happened to come across it and see it, and I was like, I'll do this guy's podcast.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I did that because I want people to take that class because I think people can get a lot out of it, and I think people can get a lot out of this. So, thank you. Anytime, appreciate it. There it is, Ross Meyerson. Sweet. I Want to Be Like You with Elbi Cespedes is produced by Elbi and Christian Cespedes. Special thanks to Angelina Cespedes, Vincenzo Salvatore Cakes, and of course, Ross Meyerson.